Good morning. My name is Pavi Adhikari and we are group 4.
Hi, my name is Aminata Kera.
My name is Tian Chan.
My name is Sylvia Clark.
And my name is Christopher Dehart, and we are interviewing Lou Panarella at Vaporize Me LLC.
Hello, I'm Matt Kopp from Group 4, and today I'm interviewing Lou from Vaporize Me. So, Lou, what made you want to get into the vaping industry?
Actually, I had a friend of mine who was a distributor of vaping products, and he kind of filled me in and pushed me along into this business.
Oh, cool. And you still stay in contact with him to this day?
I do.
Oh, that's really cool. So, what are some of the challenges that you face in this industry?
I basically face what any other business would face: tax planning, inventory control, marketing. Mine is a little bit more complex because I'm always having to keep on top of FDA regulations, and governmental issues. But other than that, pretty much standard for any
Standard
business.
for business?
Pretty much, yeah.
So, do you think there's still room for improvement in your company?
I think there's always room for improvement in anything you do. And as soon as you start thinking that you've reached a point where you can't possibly do any better, you've done yourself a disservice by doing that.
Exactly. You can always reach for the stars.
Absolutely.
And then retire after that. So, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of owning your own business?
The advantages are obviously I'm my own boss, which is terrific. I would say it's also that I can pretty much run anywhere I want to as far as creatively doing what I want here.
Of course.
The downside is that when you do work for a corporation or another person, you know what your paychecks are every week, you know your budgeting is a lot easier. Here it's pretty much all on you, but I take that as a positive.
Yeah. So, how long exactly have you been running this business?
I've been here a little bit over 2 years.
2 years?
Yes.
And do you plan on expanding your business?
I do. I'm going to be moving into a new location in Florida. From there, I believe that if you're not continually growing, then you're standing still. So
Exactly. It's a new start, new leaf.
it is.
So there's new
It
advantages
is.
and disadvantages to come.
It is.
Do you think there are any health risks that come from vaping?
I mean, listen. Granted, I'm not a physician, so I can't tell you anything with certainty. I can tell you that I can give you 100 studies that say no, there isn't. I'm sure you can find ones that say there are. Basically, what I focus on is that it is, without question, better than smoking. So I just go from there.
Absolutely, I would have to agree with you on that one. So here's an interesting one. Why do customers select you over their competition?
Well, I think probably the biggest reason is that I treat them personally. They walk in here, it's not like I want them to grab what they're going to grab and, get out. It's not that type of atmosphere. I'm very welcoming. I stand behind my products. I talk to them more as if, they're people than as in, just dollar signs.
And as a fellow customer, I have to agree with everything you said there. Like, you treat me like an actual family friend more than just another customer here.
I'm glad to hear you feel that way, man.
It really means a lot to me.
Good.
So, where do you see yourself in a couple of years? Like, once you move to Florida, working with your new business?
I see myself maybe stepping back a little bit from the day-to-day operations, not necessarily being so chained to the business where I can kind of delegate some of the responsibility out to people I trust.
Sure.
And, enjoying a little bit more of the fruits of my labor.
That's how it should be.
You're not kidding.
So, what kind of mindset do you believe you should have on owning and running your own business?
I think you should be involved with something that you enjoy, you find interesting. I think you shouldn't let yourself get completely overwhelmed with the day-to-day stuff.
Have fun with it.
You have to enjoy yourself.
You
and
gotta like what you do.
You do, and if you don't, it's going to become a chore. I think you have to balance the line between paying attention to your business and still at the same time being able to relax, not worry about every
Maintain your
single
own
minute.
personal life outside.
Gotta have your own personal life. Gotta have your own personal life.
Alright, so what are some of the biggest problems that you come across in your workplace?
I would say probably the biggest problem I have to deal with is controlling inventory, controlling my expenditures, controlling exactly what I want to have in here. As you know very well, the vaping industry completely changes on a week-to-week basis.
Absolutely, it's something new every week.
Every week, and I have to prioritize like what I'm going to carry, what I'm not going to carry, and then continually reassess, well, should I be carrying this? Well, is it cost effective for me? Well, are there parts that come with it that I have to carry that as well? What do I do in 2 weeks? When something new comes out, do I start carrying both of them? Do I eliminate the first one?
Exactly.
So it's a constant round around.
You just got to keep up to date with the days.
Always.
What were some of the biggest obstacles that you faced when setting up your business from scratch?
Originally, really becoming 100% sold to myself that this was the business that I was going to go into. I bandied about a number of different businesses, and once I came to this point where I said, okay, it's going to be a vape store, to make sure that I'm committed to doing this, make sure that this is the direction I want to go in. Following that, it was a lot of the tax ID, the creating the LLC, thinking about, well, how much inventory am I actually going to put in this store initially? Where do I allocate my resources? Getting the sign, coming in here and thinking, okay, well, I have a limited amount of space. How do I
Utilize
best use the space? What size is too small for a vape store? Like, what would a standard size be? How am I going to arrange it so that it's aesthetically pleasing when you walk in the door, but not so intimidating that someone who doesn't know what vaping is would walk in and be like, oh God, what am I doing here? I mean, it's
Make them feel like they're in a friendly environment.
you want it to feel like it's a welcoming environment. And these were a lot of things that, unless you actually jump in and do them, you have no idea. So all these things were in the back of my head, and having to prioritize them and actually get to the point where, okay, this is what I need to really spend time on. This is what I need to do here. And then on top of that, probably the last thing that I encountered was being really careful with the amount of money that I was spending.
Of course. Budgeting, it's all budgeting.
Budgeting is very serious because one of the main reasons a new business fails is they have a lack of backup capital. Meaning that if I was to not really start making money for 6 months, do I have the capital that I can continue paying my bills and floating the business while I'm waiting for the business to become known and picking up?
Of course.
So these were a lot of things that were bantering around.
It's definitely a lot of things.
It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stress you gotta worry about.
It's stress, but it's pleasant stress because
Especially if it comes up with a big W in the end.
exactly. You always look at the end game, man. You don't look at
You always look at the future, not the past.
Always.
So what are some of the pros and cons of having your business on a popular street? Because all I can think of is really pros.
Well, I can tell you a kind. Well, the pros are you get a lot of traffic. You're able to be recognized by a lot of people, even if they're just driving by. If they're going somewhere else, people look up, see the sign. What is this place? The con really is, and a lot of businesses make this mistake. They'll see a lot of like vehicle traffic and be like, "Oh, perfect spot." But what you don't realize is that if people are coming here, there's no place to park. They got to go 2 blocks away to park their car and walk over here, or they just want to stop and pop in. And now you're in such a populated area that you can't just park the car and run in. You got meters, you got a lot of things going on. In a sense, that's a negative. Here, it's a little bit easier because there is a more calm atmosphere in the early day, and then right around 5, 6 o'clock it gets a little crazy. But that's really the only con. Exposure is extremely important.
That is, I've never even thought of that, to be honest. That's a good point.
That's why I'm top of my game.
So this is something that I'm interested in especially. So what is the process you go through when you're working with different juice companies to carry their liquid?
Okay. Now you've been in here enough to know that every time you walk in here,
You're always on the phone and you're always talking business.
I'm always talking business, and as soon as that tends to slow down a little, I'm always pulling out juices for you to try.
You are.
And the reason I do that is because my opinion, I'm only looking for quality, but my opinion on taste and what's gonna sell
You want a customer's perspective.
is you. You tell me. And that's why keeping your ears open and your eyes fixed on what your customers want.
Customer's always right.
Absolutely, absolutely, in all situations.
So, what are some of your greatest fears in this industry, and how do you manage those fears?
My greatest fear is, for me, I think there's one that I can control, one I can't. The greatest fear for me is that I don't foresee what's coming down the road. Meaning that, kind of it's a situation where I'm failing to prepare, and then I have to suffer the consequences because of it. It's always a concern in business that, you gotta keep looking forward. You gotta know what the obstacles are gonna be ahead of you before you get there.
Of course.
In terms of the other fear that I can control, my fear is that vaping will be demonized like cigarettes are, because I know the big tobacco companies do not like the idea.
They're the ones funding all the research behind it.
And they're funding the anti-vaping propaganda. So my fear with that is that they lobby or they, put a fear into people's heads through misinformation that vaping is, no better than cigarettes, and kind of push our industry into the same
predicament as them, right?
as they're in. Right.
So, what are some pieces of advice you would give college students who are interested in starting their own business?
Okay.
Like fresh out of college.
Fresh out of college, the first thing I would tell you is draw up a business plan.
Definitely a business plan.
Definitely a business plan. The thing you should be most aware of is the expense involved. Know what your overhead is going to be. Before anything else, you can do profit projections, you can do, well, I think I'm gonna make this much money, and that all changes the minute you open the door. What you wanna know and what the absolute constant is what is going to be the financial commitment that I have to meet every week, every month, every year, before I even get into this. What's gonna be my outlay of how much money is enough that I'm doing it right? When you get that down and you're able to say, okay, I've got a good hold on this, and what my expectations are going to be financially.
You're feeling confident about it.
You'll feel confident. You'll feel good to know that, okay, this is where I really have to concentrate. And you'll know as you're going along through the business, saying, okay, well, I'm building my business. I'm not quite meeting up to where I financially thought I would be in terms of covering all my outlay and my expenses. Okay, I have to start to adjust my perspective on how I'm going to do business. That's the biggest thing. Just be prepared. Dot the I's and cross the T's before you even walk in.
Of course. And you'll like this question. So, how are you able to operate under poor economic conditions?
I mean, it's, and not to compare it to cigarette smoking, but even in a condition where people's expendable income is shrinking because of the economy and because of joblessness or whatever, there are certain necessities that you still have to keep buying. Now, you may say, well, vaping is not a necessity, but to someone who's trying to quit smoking, vaping is a necessity. A lot of it is to do with the hand motion, a lot of it's doing with the actual, even though you're not smoking, you're vaping. That becomes a necessity. Because the necessity is whether your doctor is telling you you gotta stop, or whether you've begun to feel the positive physical advantages of vaping, it becomes a necessity. I want to feel good. Right. I want to feel good. My clothes smell better. I'm able to walk better. I'm able to breathe better. I'm able to taste better. This is a necessity for my quality of life. Now, from an economic standpoint, if I feel like, well, people don't have as much expendable income, maybe you adjust your prices accordingly to try and give people a little bit of a break when you feel the economy's twisting.
Instead of spending $10 on a pack of cigarettes, spend $5-6 on a bottle of liquor,
Right, and if need be, and you
which
need to
would
go
last
ahead,
even longer.
it will, and if you need to go ahead and maybe, cut your price back $1 or 50 cents, you do that because the long run is what you should always be looking at.
Like on an average day, like how long do you normally work?
I would say probably about 10 to 12 hours.
10 to 12 hours?
Yeah, about approximately.
And one of my last questions is, how would you get a current cigarette smoker to switch into the vaping industry?
Well, it really depends on what they're telling me. I'm really going by what they're telling me. If they're telling me that they want to quit smoking, first thing I say to them right off the bat is, if you have to be totally set in your mind that you're going to quit smoking, or otherwise there's nothing I or anyone else can do to help you. From that point, I basically try steering them into, what are their habits? How much do they smoke? To give them an alternative in terms of the motor function, in terms of the taste, in terms of the smell. Not make them feel like they're in that cold turkey syndrome where they don't have anything. And then from there, I basically just let them lead me to where they want to go. And, if they're feeling like they're going to smoke, they want to go more towards tobaccos, they take them there. But I want to get them to the point where they don't like the smell or taste of cigarettes. And this is usually a good alternative, especially if I'm going with the fruits or the custards or the pastry type of flavors. And then eventually they don't want that tobacco taste anymore. And then hopefully at that point, hopefully at that point they're done with smoking cigarettes, and we've accomplished something that's important for their health and their general well-being. And I kind of like to think that that's one of the main reasons why I'm here. It's not just about being a business. I want to see people get over an addiction that they have, that we all know for 100% assurity is not healthy for them. And that's really, that's really the road I go down when I have people come in and want to move from one to the other.
And it's also more of like kind of the feel of vaping. Like it's all about, people want the pull, they want the taste. It's all about kind of the throat hit. It's how can they get the same stimulation from smoking tobacco as they can from vaping.
It's very much mental. It's very much mental.
It's all mental completely. It's that bringing something to your mouth to smoke.
That's all mental, and then it morphs into that they start enjoying it, and then it becomes more of a hobby in a lot of ways. And that's what we're hoping to do.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking your time to interview me.
Anytime. Thanks for coming in.